We would be honored if you would join us.
All right, everyone, welcome to another episode of Dungeon Crawlers, where things have gone awry. Things have gone crazy. Things have gone upside down and inside out and all around, but things are good. So first, we got a little bit of geek news, and then we're going to talk about our topic, which I'm going to wait till after geek news to tell you what our topic is, which is not normal because normally I tell you what our topic is now, and then we go into geek news, but I'm going to leave that for a surprise. Maybe not. Well, maybe I shouldn't because you're going to already see the banner and everything and know what the whole episode is about. So I'm just being weird. So we'll talk about the new #1 most viewed ever show on Disney Plus history, which is Obi-Wan. That's right. There will be spoilers. There will be talk. There will be all sorts of things. So if you want to listen to this show, this episode particularly, then you need to go watch at least the first 2 episodes.
I like how you started off the episode by saying that we were going to get into geek news before you announced the topic, and then you immediately announced the topic.
Well,
and I'm okay with that.
It's because they're going to see episode. They're going to hit play and they're going to see the name. And
they are. It's going to be. They already knew coming in, right?
Yeah.
And on top of that, it's okay because even if they didn't see that, what I like is that you set them up and then you surprised them.
I know.
It was a surprise,
it's
no matter
called
what.
Subverting expectations.
Yes.
I never let them know your next
from
move.
underneath them.
Search your feelings. You know it's true.
Yes, it is. It is very true.
So we're going to keep it short. We're going to keep it tight.
Let's jump in.
Let's do it. There are a couple of Star Wars related geek news items that I found this week. First of all, this is I think okay, it's a pseudo spoiler, but it's one of those, well, everybody expected this to happen at some point. So it's not that big a spoiler, right? James Earl Jones is returning as the voice of Darth Vader.
Yay!
Yay!
I mean, tell me where you've hidden the rebel plans or whatever. Anyway, and then second is I believe it's Hasbro that's behind this one. Yeah, it is. They are releasing an official Jon Favreau action figure with him in his Mandalorian outfit with removable helmets. You can see that it's Jon Favreau. For those who don't know, Jon Favreau plays the heavy, meaning heavy weapon, Mandalorian in the show The Mandalorian. He's the one that fights Din Djarin when Din Djarin has the Darksaber and he tries to take it back. He's actually one of the descendants of the original wielder of the Darksaber, etc., etc.
He's part of Clan Vizsla. Now, the cool thing about this is it's a Black Series figure. It's not one of the smaller ones.
No.
It's one of the larger Black Series figures.
Super
and
high
honestly,
quality.
He deserves it.
He does. This isn't Hasbro paying like, oh, it's fan service. We're going to have Jon Favreau. No. This is Hasbro wrapping up everyone's thank you into an action figure for Jon Favreau. And he deserves every 12-inch of it.
Now what we need is a Dave Filoni action figure with the cowboy hat.
Yes, but only as a Force ghost.
Yes.
Now, interesting fact, out of the 3 of us on this show, one of us also has their own action figure. And it is my brother, the original Krebs.
I have one.
You got? Oh, I didn't know you had an action figure made of you too?
Yeah, I have a 3D printed one where they scanned me and they made me an Iron Man action figure with my face.
I forgot about that. Okay, so the stat now becomes one person on this show does not have an action figure.
But no, Josh, the Krebs father over there, for his role in the Danger Element, got a figure.
It was a Lego minifig.
That is awesome.
Yeah. All right, so I will pass the geek news baton to my brother, Matthew. Matai-san, what you got?
All right, got a couple of short articles here. First of all, Geek Tech News. The #2 person at Meta, the former Facebook, Sheryl Sandberg, is stepping down this fall. She is the chief operating officer, is the #2 in charge, right behind Mark Zuckerberg. She's stepping down. No reason specifically given other than she said she only planned to be there for 5 years and it's been 14. This is very significant in an industry where there's not a lot of female representation, that she was in a position of such power and authority and helped
Huge.
influence the direction that Facebook and other Meta products went. So thank you for your contributions, Sheryl Sandberg, and good luck on future endeavors.
Indeed.
Yes.
So, and then we have a bit of sad news, I guess we might say, or disappointing news. Many of you are familiar with Salt Lake's comic book convention,
Yes, please.
dubbed Salt Lake FanX, founded by Dan Farr and Brian Brandenburg. Unfortunately, co-founder Brian Brandenburg, well, he made an appearance in federal court Tuesday. This would be about May 24th.
And not the good kind.
He wasn't necessarily there by his own choice. He's going through a contentious and difficult divorce right now, and apparently he got a little upset that that people at the courthouse weren't sending him the documents and finalizing the divorce as quickly as he wanted once they'd reached the settlement and stuff. And so he emailed several people in Utah that that they needed to do what he wanted, or he was going to bomb the courthouse, which is a federal building. And then he followed it up with additional emails threatening to bomb other buildings. And,
when approached about it, he was like, "Ha ha, just joke." Ah ha ha.
Yeah, wasn't quite like that. So he's been brought up on charges of making terroristic threats. And because it was across state lines, there's also that, specifically transmitting threats in interstate commerce and threatening and conveying false information concerning the use of an explosive.
Well,
Emphasis
painful.
that it is false information. He wasn't ever actually intending to blow anything up. The charge is that he made a threat to do so, even though he did not have the means or intent to actually follow.
Well, and the worst part about this is this was all conducted over email, not a phone call.
That's right.
Email. It's in black and white. There's no denying. Like, oh no, they just misunderstood me. Nope, it's there. It's going to be interesting to see what the convention does. They, part ways with Brian or what? Yeah.
If only he had sent those emails via Hillary Clinton's server, he would have nothing to worry about.
Yes. But anyways.
Yeah. So I don't think this is going to have a big effect on FanX. I think FanX is still going to go on, but I do worry if there might be some fallout that kind of falls on that. Dan Farr's still been pretty good and keeping his nose clean in the media, at least.
Well, and unfortunately, this is not the first time we've seen issues with Mr. Brandenburg. There was a couple years back where he kind of spouted stuff off in anger, and so it seems like this is an issue for him. Unfortunately, we've had Dan Farr on the show, we've had other people from FanX. They've always been more than wonderful and exemplary. So, unfortunately, they probably will have to part ways with Brian, so that doesn't negatively affect them. And depending on his trial and how that goes out, that might be solved for him anyways. But again, this is just, it's sad. It's sad this has happened.
It is definitely sad.
I've gone through a divorce myself, and they're difficult, but I have never got to the point where I've ever just blown up at someone like this. I mean, I get someone spouting off this is ridiculous. Why can't you just send me paperwork? But to say I'm going to bomb you and I'm going to bomb there's so many different places he said he was going to bomb and just torch, and it was just ridiculous.
It's one of those situations where if he just popped his cork once and it was a one-off, he might have some defense. But the fact that he wrote down in emails on more than one occasion, several occasions with multiple locations, then it just became terroristic, right?
Yeah. And they don't, base after 9/11, the government doesn't look kindly on that stuff. So, all right. Anything else?
That's the geek news.
All right.
Daniel, do you have anything?
I don't.
Can I throw in a bonus item?
Go ahead.
The trailer for the new Willow series on Disney Plus has dropped, and it is beautiful.
Yes.
Oh, you daikini!
Hey, you can't say that word anymore. No, I'm a Nelwyn. No, I turned to my wife. I showed her this trailer, and I turned to my wife and I said, "Willow looks like a better Wheel of Time series than the Wheel of Time series."
Well, it might. I did read the sequel, the book that was the sequel to Willow, because it was written by Chris Claremont and George Lucas.
Oh,
Which sounded awesome to me, and I didn't know why it was in the bargain bin for $2. And then I read the book, and I'm not sure that I think $2 was still too high.
oof.
It was bad. It was really, really bad. So I'm excited to see this new series too. I think it's great. We've got his name, Willow, the actor.
Warwick Davis.
Warwick Davis. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. Senior moment there. Just forgot his name for a moment. Warwick Davis is back, and wasn't he a teenager in the original Willow?
Yes, actually, like he plays a Nelwyn that's older than he was in real life.
Yeah.
And the woman that played Kaya, his wife, was significantly older than him, but it interestingly on screen still played well.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Warwick has got kind of an older, mature face, and it serves him well because even in this series, he's quite old now, but it doesn't look like he's aged too much.
Yeah, like he's actually doing pretty well, all things considered. For the record, although spelled Warwick, it is pronounced Warwick.
Of course, because it's British.
Of
Sorry.
course it is. Of course it is. Remember that Ioan Griffith is how you say that guy's name from Fantastic Four.
I'm pretty sure it's not.
Yes,
I'm
it
pretty
is.
sure it's Ionia Griffith.
Yes, when I first saw his name, I thought it was like Ian Grufford. I thought that was like his name, or like Ion Grufford. No.
Well, from now on,
Griffith.
I declare his name is Billy Goat Gruff.
His name is Bobby. That's his name from now on. His name is Bobby, and there's no arguing. I met him in person once. He was a delight. All right.
He has to find 4 other people first.
He has to find 4 other people. It's a Fantastic Four. He's got to find them. Led by John Krasinski.
And then you find 4 people, and then they find 4 people.
And now you have a gang fight.
Yes.
All right, so
No, now we go sell new skin.
now we go sell. Now it's an MLM. Guys, this episode has been so full of Utah jokes. I don't know how many people understand, but it's great.
None
Okay.
of them. Probably
All
none
right.
of them.
We actually, I am chomping at the bit to talk about tonight's topic. So, Daniel, have you a wonderful segue to get us underway?
Really? A segue. Well, we can easily go to a place far, far away in a galaxy. Far. No. I'm just.
A
I'm
galaxy
just, we're gonna
long,
jump
long
in.
ago.
Well,
no.
you mentioned the topic a long time ago.
Yes. Well, I also got a really cool other email that just came in, so that distracted me. Anyways, we're gonna jump in. We're gonna talk about the latest Disney Plus series, which we've been excited for. We've been waiting. We've been anticipating, with high hopes that it was going to be awesome, but at the same time fearing that it could be as flat as Solo.
I still like Solo.
I still enjoy Solo,
You are Solo in that.
but I enjoy Solo for what it tried to be, but it just didn't have what it needed to be Star Wars. It's kind of like that Ghostbuster film that had an all-female cast that just, nothing against the female cast, it just didn't feel like it was Ghostbusters. It felt like a paranormal investigation movie that just had that name slapped onto it. Thankfully, Obi-Wan was not that. From the get-go, it had the feel of the prequel and original series.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the cool thing is you got a really quick montage of the prequels to kind of get you caught up. So even if you've never seen the prequels, you can kind of understand what's going on.
And I
again,
have to say, like, as someone who's not a fan of the prequels, I am not a fan of the prequels.
Yeah.
But that summation of that story arc through the prequels, because the prequels have multiple storylines, right?
Yeah.
That summation was actually brilliantly well done, and I thought it was a better movie than the trilogy.
Wow. Again, folks, throwing it out there. Spoilers. If you haven't seen it, pause, go watch it, come back.
And if you haven't seen the prequel trilogy, that ended in 2005. You had your time. I have got no tears for you.
Yes. The really cool and amazing thing is you jump into this film and it doesn't feel like it's been that long. It feels like we're still in that galaxy far, far away in that same universe, and it doesn't feel disjointed. Like I enjoyed 7, 8, and 9. 7, 8, and 9 felt awkward to me. It felt like I was being forced back into this world to enjoy new storyline. This I didn't feel it, not once. Even feeling Obi-Wan not being the Jedi that we've seen, just being a Joe Schmo that's cutting this giant.
They're mining meat
fish, and he's not being the normal cool guy we've seen in the previous 3 movies. But I really enjoyed it, and I felt like I'm literally on Tatooine. I like the little the fact that we saw the Skyjumper, the Skyhopper.
Yeah, the T-16.
That we see Luke playing with.
Just the toy, not the actual ship, just the toy.
The toy. And Obi-Wan is the one that delivered that. I'm like, that was so amazing to see that little minor thing.
And they used it to great effect in terms of storytelling.
Oh, yeah.
Because not only does he buy the toy and then clean it up, it was filthy, and he cleaned it up beautifully.
Yeah, because he got it from a Jawa.
But then, right when we think Luke is the one finding the toy, it ends up it's Uncle Owen, and Uncle Owen, played by Joel Edgerton, reprising the role because he did play Uncle Owen in Episode 3 just briefly. It was a cameo.
He was also in 2. He was also in Episode 2.
Was he in Episode 2?
Yeah, because when Anakin went back because he found his mom. Yeah.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, I guess that's what I get for not liking those movies. Anyway,
that's okay.
So
that's okay.
And doesn't he show up again in Episode 3 just in profile when Obi-Wan delivers baby Luke?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. That was his cameo in Part 3.
Oh.
And he shows up for a huge role in the movie Bright, but that's unconnected. Anyway, so but he's the one who comes back, returns the toy, and it segues into an incredible conversation. Incredible might be a little strong, but I will say a poignant conversation between him and Obi-Wan. It furthers the story. It furthers the plot. This is another example of how, and this wasn't, these episodes weren't directed by Feige, mind you, but I'm just throwing him in there into the whole mix. But like Feige, Filoni, Favreau, the 3 Fs, and then you have the other directors, including Bryce Dallas Howard and the others who were in there. And this was, I don't want to get her name wrong, but I think her last name is I have to look it up. But this was directed by someone who's done a few of the Mandalorian episodes also. She's a brilliant...
Deborah Chow.
Deborah Chow, thank you. Deborah Chow, she has intention with everything she does. She wastes nothing. She's not frivolous. All of the directors of the Star Wars shows on Disney Plus, they use everything. This is very much like the director of Incredibles. Was that Brian Bird? His philosophy was use the entire buffalo. You don't waste anything. So the movies for the Incredibles, every little detail means something. Every little detail gets used. And the same thing is happening here in the Obi-Wan series, and I love it. It's great storytelling.
Let's take a step back for 1 second, because we're kind of just diving in chaos theory style.
Well, I wanted to jump in real quick before we do that. The other real brilliant part about that scene is we see that confrontation, and then it slides into another scene where he could have easily given Obi-Wan up and gotten rid of him, but doesn't.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I think there's this really interesting dynamic that I hope they play with more between those two. But all right, let's go to the next
I have to correct myself. It's Brad Bird who directed Incredibles. Apologies. Go on, Matthew. Matthijs-san,
so I was just going to say, we kind of jumped in right into some of the meat and some of the details here. Let's talk briefly about what Obi-Wan is. What is the premise here? So again, this happens between Revenge of the Sith, which came out in 2005, and A New Hope, which came out in 1977.
It's 10 years after the end of episode 3.
Right. So, right, if assuming that Luke was around 20 or almost 20, then this is like right in the middle,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And so what's happened is, after Order 66, Jedi have been killed, and Obi-Wan is hiding out on Tatooine to watch over Luke. The Organa family has got his twin sister Leia, and so they're raising her as a princess and a future senator in the Imperium. And but Luke gets to be a dust farmer, a moisture farmer on
Moisture
Tatooine.
farmer.
Let's be honest, they're farming dirt. It's a moisture farmer on Tatooine.
They're getting water out of the dirt because it used
Yeah.
to be an ocean planet that is now a desolate desert.
And so Obi-Wan is hanging out there, kind of just to watch over him and be a protector, make sure nobody comes near him, and make sure that nobody knows he's Darth Vader's son. But in the meantime, he's just being a normal Tatooine vagabond.
Yeah.
And one interesting parallel that struck me in all of this, especially later on, when we see him struggle to use the Force, is how this parallels Luke hiding out in the sequel trilogy, and how he had kind of abandoned the Force. And so I thought it was an interesting parallel between the two. Obi-Wan is he's buried his lightsaber.
Mhm.
He's consciously refraining from using the Force and just trying to go through life as a normal, inconspicuous person on Tatooine.
Well, one thing I liked about that is it also shows, because we see that Luke is really weak because he cut himself off from the Force. It also shows why he probably gave up the fight against Vader on the Death Star, because he'd been cut off so long.
Are you talking about Obi-Wan or Luke?
Obi-Wan.
Obi-Wan.
Yeah, because
Gotcha.
we did see Luke be, when he projected himself, it was so much that, he died. But it shows that when you cut yourself off from that, it takes a toll if you try to use it again. Because we do see that he was really trying with that scene with Leia, and it took a lot for him to finally connect back.
Yeah.
Yeah. They did a number of subtle things along that vein too. There was some subtlety in the show, including there's a scene where Obi-Wan's co-worker ends up with half of his normal wage, and there's a moment where Obi-Wan, who sees the injustice, stares down the work boss, who is callous and unfeeling. And I don't know about you, but I thought for a moment, he's going to use a Jedi mind trick, and he's going to fix this problem.
I was waiting for it.
But then he didn't, and that was poignant. That was important, that he refused to use the Force even to exact justice because it was just too dangerous, and he's got to protect Luke. He's got to keep every bad vector from Vader from coming toward Luke, so he can't use the Force, or it'll draw Luke in. And then I'm going to pass it over to you, Matthias-san, but I also want to come back to lightsaber in the sand, because I'm hoping, it wasn't exactly subtle, but I'm hoping you guys caught something in that moment as well. Matthias-san.
And I just to add one more point on here, because I think this is the direction we're heading. We have the premise of what's going on with Obi-Wan, but the conflict is the Inquisitors, the Inquisitorius. Is that what the group is called? But
They're the Inquisitors.
Yeah, the Inquisitors are sent to hunt down Jedi, and I really want to talk about them and ask you guys some questions about them a little later on. But the Inquisitors are in the hunt, and there's one in particular, Third Sister, who has it out for Obi-Wan.
Reva.
She really wants Obi-Wan. She wants to bring him before Vader because she knows that he just has this hatred for his former mentor. And so that's what creates conflict and tension in all this. And so far in the first 2 episodes, it's the advent of the Inquisitors that have driven all of the conflict.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that is true.
So there's a couple things I like, especially with episode 1, is we finally get to see Alderaan for the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other than a quick flyby.
Other than a debris field.
Yeah, we actually get to see what Alderaan looks like. I really love how young Leia just tears apart her cousin that's trying to insult her. And I like Leia's character as a younger girl.
Yeah.
And then I have to wonder what happened. Because she's not quite that spunky way. And there's even a comment, that Obi-Wan makes to her, like, you remind me of someone I know. And so she very much is like Padme.
Mm-hmm.
And he makes that comment. We get to see Flea for the first time in forever, since probably Back to the Future 2 show up.
Let's talk about casting for a minute. What did you all think of the people they cast in many of these roles?
I think some of them was fantastic. One, so there's a scene where Obi-Wan's on a planet and there's a girl that's offering him death sticks.
Yep. Spice, right?
Or Spice, excuse me. That is the great grandniece of the guy that plays Wedge Antilles, and that is Ewan McGregor's own daughter.
What?
Yeah.
Wait, so then Ewan McGregor married a woman who's related to the original Wedge Antilles?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So that's kind of cool.
So wait a second, I was a little confused there. The character selling drugs is not the actual grandniece of the Wedge Antilles character.
No. It's the actress.
It's the actual actor.
Okay.
Yeah. And is Ewan McGregor's daughter. Not only that, Mark Hamill, if you pay attention, in the background as Obi-Wan is walking, you can see Mark Hamill in the background with his beard and kind of a Han Solo-esque outfit. He actually has a cameo in Obi-Wan, which I think
did not see that. Where was this?
I'll have to.
Was it episode 1 or 2? Do you remember?
It's when he's on the planet trying to find Leia. So it's
so he's on
2.
Alderaan.
It's not Alderaan. It's the other.
It's the Daithu or whatever it is.
Yeah. So there's a lot of, and no, they've got some great casts. They've brought back Bail Organa,
Jimmy Smits.
Jimmy Smits, and I really like his interaction with Leia. We have some interesting characters that we have on Tatooine. There's rumors we may see Qui-Gon. I don't know. I know Hayden Christensen is back. There are a couple things that I'm bothered with the series, though.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question.
But
let's finish up some of the casting stuff and let's get into that.
Yeah, and then to jump back to the revealing scene of the lightsaber, we see again Anakin's saber, which we know goes to Luke.
Yeah, I love that they kept that continuity. That when he buried his saber, it was his and Anakin's that he buried. That is also highly symbolic about, concerning like sort of like the burying or the treasuring of their brotherhood, but also like it kind of puts it like in a stasis in a way, like you put it in a time capsule and you save it. It doesn't change from that state, but you also don't have it in your life anymore.
Well, and the other thing I really appreciated, it was in a box.
Yes.
Whereas at the end of episode 9, we see Rey wrap it in some cloth and then Force push it down. And so it's like,
yeah, that's true too.
Yeah.
But in terms of like, chain of custody and where that lightsaber had ended up, the fact that it was in that box, and we later see it in a similar but I think a different box when Obi-Wan gives it to Luke, and then when Rey has her Force vision, it's in that same box. So yeah, like I thought that they did really well with the continuity there.
Well, and I also like your parallel where it's a box, it's like a coffin. He buried that relationship, that brotherhood. So but casting, I think casting was fantastic. I love the little Easter eggs they've done with casting.
Yeah, I'm glad they chose Ewan McGregor for Obi-Wan. That was a really good choice on their part.
Yeah, but like having Flea show up is like this scoundrel.
I was so pleased. I was so pleased to see him in that role.
Was wonderful. I loved it. And for his character's need there, I mean, I don't rely on Flea for an Oscar-worthy performance, but he makes a great scoundrel.
Yes.
He does.
Well, and not only that, the other cool thing, I can't remember his name, but he plays Han in the Fast and the Furious series.
Oh yeah, him playing the other Inquisitor.
The
right?
other
The
Inquisitor,
second brother.
With the helmet and everything, that was fantastic.
Also, if you listen to it with a sound system that has a subwoofer, or if you listen to it with proper headphones, they add a digital bass tone to his speaking voice that gives it this rumble. You know, like he has this normal, he's like hissing over the top of it, but it has bass underneath.
Yeah,
it
he
sounds
plays
so
the fifth
good.
brother, and he sounds just like the character in Rebels, as well as in the Cal Kestis game. But one of the characters I really, really enjoyed was what is his name? He was the fake Jedi.
Nari?
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Yes.
Kumail.
Kumail Nanjiani.
He was in the Eternals.
Yes, he was in the Eternals.
I'm gonna look it up.
He was fantastic.
Kumail Nanjiani.
Yeah, and he's come a long way as an actor, actually. He was always sort of like the geeky comic relief, and he was like in a million things as like the stereotypical Indian or Hindu, like, you know, friend or whatever. And then for Eternals, he worked his guts out, and he became like ripped and buff, but he's still a darn funny. Like, I think he's in many ways, if I can say this, he reminds me of like an Eastern version of Taika Waititi.
Oh yeah,
like those two should be in a movie together, and it would be hysterical.
Buddy cop movie all the way.
This is the really cool thing. You know, he put a post out on Twitter, and he's like, "Man, when I was a kid, my cousin, you know, his family is well off, and he had all of the Star Wars figures, and I was always super jealous of him." And he's like, "But I think I win now." You know.
So he was a great casting. I love they brought Jimmy Smits back.
Yes.
I think he's looking a little long in the tooth.
Yes.
Well, you know, it's only 10 years story-wise, but it's been like 17 years since the movie, right?
Yes.
Jimmy Smits is starting to show his age, but I'll still give it to him because I just love Jimmy Smits.
Because Jimmy Smits, and he's still my favorite Los Angeles lawyer.
Exactly.
Also, throwing this out there, because even though this doesn't have to do exactly with casting selection, it does have to do with character selection. There was, in the bounty hunting group who kidnapped Leia, there was a female Faline alien. Faline is the race that Shizor belongs to from Shadows of the Empire.
Yep.
And Shizor is like one of my favorite villains. He's right up there with Grand Admiral Thrawn. And they had one of his race as the female chasing Leia, and it was great.
Well, not only that, the other cool thing is when Obi-Wan was infiltrating the facility, there was a Zabrak there. You know?
Yes.
And he didn't have all the dark tattoos like Maul did, but generally we haven't really seen those races. So this is something I've really enjoyed, is they're trying to bring in more diversity by seeing all the other alien races.
And not just stereotyped as either Sith or bumbling or sidekick. Like even Black Chris Santon, even though he was acting as like a henchman for the Hutts, he was like a standalone character also. He wasn't just a sidekick, right?
Yeah.
And I love that, you know, we got to see a Zabrak alien who is not just covered in black and red tattoos.
Yes. Well, and the other really cool thing that I liked is the nod back to the Clone Wars. We had, you know, the veteran
my gosh, yes.
Clone Warrior sitting there kind of begging for scraps with his helmet. It was so great seeing that, because then we go and see the stormtroopers marching down the aisle, down the street, and just kind of ruling everything.
That was my favorite cameo, because I see that he's got this beard stuff. I look at it and I go, "Oh my word, that's Temuera Morrison."
Yep.
Yeah.
That's actually him. That's Jango Fett, Boba Fett. That's him.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
and like, okay, that is a good attention to detail. That was a good callback.
And he
Obi-Wan,
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
And Obi-Wan just felt compelled to give him money. At a moment there, I thought, could that be Rex? Because I thought Rex grew a beard in the
Rex
older...
is bald, and he's in Rebels, and technically he wouldn't be there at this time. Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't sure about that, but anyway, I saw that, and I went a little crazy on that.
Again,
Yeah,
with like the attention...
and the markings on the helmets was wrong for Rex.
Yeah.
And Rex, I guarantee, would have recognized Obi-Wan.
And you know what, like the again, the attention to detail and absolute zero frivolity. They paid a lot of fan service without cheapening the story.
Yes.
And I thought that was huge. That is quite a talent. This goes back to Filoni and Favreau and Chow and like that whole team. There's a team of directors, but they talk to each other and they write the stories together and they tell a story deliberately and not just frivolously. And I love that. I love that about these shows.
So I've got two questions about casting choices for you.
Okay.
The first question is the girl they picked for Leia Organa.
Moses Ingram, I think is her name?
No.
No, for Leia. I was already thinking
Vivian,
the third sister.
Lyra Blair. I think it was perfect.
What do you
She
think
looked
of her?
a little young to me. Okay. Her performance was excellent. I thought that she did a great job embodying the persona of Leia. There were a few moments where her being a child actor shone through, but I think the only real beef I had with that whole thing is that she's supposed to be 10 years old and she looks 8 at best.
The actress actually is 10 years old.
That's amazing.
June 4th of, granted, this may have been filmed last year. No, it did film last year.
Yeah.
So she would have been 9. Her birthday is June 4th, 2012. So she'll be 10 here shortly.
So she's not quite 10. She filmed it when she was 9.
But she, honestly, I could see her as a 10-year-old. She's just maybe looks a little young for her age. The hard part is we didn't really get to see a close-up view of Luke.
But from a distance, he came off as like 11 or 12 almost.
Yeah.
I will say, when she was running from the bounty hunters and she had to slide under that limb, she physically had to pull that off. And I have to say, it looked natural and it looked skilled. Like, she did a great job.
Yeah.
So I got to disagree with you a little bit on the moments of a child actress. I actually liked her because she didn't come off to me as a child actress. She wasn't being precocious. She wasn't pretending her lines. She actually was smooth and into the character like an accomplished or experienced actor or actress would be, at least in my opinion. The one thing I didn't like about her, I think it was the writing. The character made her too strong-willed, too sassy, and you can and there's room here for growth. So I'm not being critical here.
Right.
I think that this little girl, there is a path, if you write the story right, how this very stubborn, strong-willed girl turns into Princess Leia, ambassador for the government later on. But that was one thing that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I didn't like that she was just kind of mean and disobedient all the time.
I think that showed quite a bit. Because the Leia we see as a senator, she faces Darth Vader head to head with not even a bead of sweat rolling down her face, and she's willing to confront him and Tarkin. I think this sets that up because everyone in the Organa family knows she's adopted, and they've probably ragged on her whole life. And so that's why we see her sneaking off, because that's the only time she can have some peace and solitude from all these other family members that are just like, we see that her cousin is just mean and rude. And then she just gives them all what for. So I think this is the groundwork that builds up to that Leia we see that can look at Tarkin and can look at Darth Vader and deliver the lines that she has. I'm an Imperial Senate and blah, 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 without sweating. We see people that are on several of these Star Destroyers with Vader that are just sweating bullets not to screw up around him.
And that was another parallel I liked, and you brought this up earlier as well. Seeing her stand up to and verbally eviscerate her cousin, who was larger, has more social standing. She wasn't intimidated at all, and that's exactly a parallel of her facing off with the Grand Moffs or with Lord Vader himself. I loved that.
And I also think it also kind of pays a little homage to Padme. I mean, Padme was definitely very much like that. So it kind of shows that, maybe a little bit of Padme, even though she wasn't there, still was there.
And to your points earlier, when she did that to her cousin, she did so in a way where emotion did not override her logic.
Yes.
And she did so clearly, concisely, and with facts,
Yeah.
as opposed to just being like, well, you're a duty face.
Yeah.
Right? Like she...
Well, and that's the thing that I loved. It wasn't like,
Yeah.
well, you're an idiot or you're a poopy face. It was, she delivered it perfectly with facts to the point that he couldn't dispute it.
The ability to dissect a person for their strengths and their flaws is what serves her as a senator later and as a spy.
Yeah.
And my second casting was Moses Ingram as Reva, third sister Inquisitor. Now, there's been some bad
There's been
posts.
some kerfuffle.
Yeah, there's been some criticism online about her casting. So what? I'll give my opinion first. I love her. I think that I find her very credible as this really headstrong inquisitor that is driven almost psychopathically. She really goes across the line, and she's a really dangerous person to deal with. I would not want to cross her path. I don't think that I could stand up like Owen Lars did with her there.
That was terrifying.
Oh, that was That was awful. But she sold it. And she doesn't have makeup. She doesn't have prosthetics. It is just her face, her expressions, her body language. Do you know what they call that? They call that acting.
Yeah.
And I bought that character. So I love her casting in this.
There's been some news around some insensitive tweets about her casting in this position and everything. And to be honest with you, I have paid almost no attention to any of it. Yeah. And the primary reason for me is I agree with you. I thought she did a great job in that role. You have the Grand Inquisitor. You have the second brother, and who is cast via an Asian actor, and then you have Reva, who is a black female playing this role. And I don't see what the problem is. I really don't. I don't know why some people are up in arms. I highly doubt. Maybe it bears some research, but I highly, highly doubt that the majority of Star Wars fans out there don't agree, have problems with this. I highly doubt they have problems with this casting. To your point, she did a great job.
This is kind of probably the problem. The one complaint I have is, Lucasfilm and Disney has been throwing out posts like crazy regarding this backlash. The question is, where was that for Kelly Tran, and where was that for John Boyega? I can't even say his last. Boyega. When they were dealing with this with the other Star Wars films, why weren't they backing them up and setting that precedent? That's the one thing that's kind of weird for me. But hey, they're doing it, so that's great. Now, third sister in Rebels is yellow skinned. She wears this weird kind of pointy-ish hat. So I get where some people are trying to be going, because Rebels is canon.
Well,
so
hang on a second, though. That's not third sister. That's seventh sister.
Is that seventh sister?
Because I went
looking. Yeah, I went looking because I was so impressed with her performance. I wanted to know what the backstory of the character was, because I haven't seen Rebels. And I went looking, and this is the first appearance that I could find of third sister. There were other sister Inquisitors in the Rebel series, but third sister never showed up.
Okay, so if that's not the same one, okay.
And that's why I've been really curious as to why,
you want to know
why is this an issue?
Yeah.
By the way, I've been saying it wrong. I think it's actually fifth brother that's in the show. I'm going to verify that.
Yeah,
really
it
quick.
is fifth brother.
It's and when you look at the cartoon version versus the live action, it's actually pretty faithful, all things considered.
Yes.
Okay,
And
then actually, yeah, I'm wrong, and who cares now? I mean,
yeah.
I thought that was her. If that's the case, no,
I think she's
there's
an
no
original
complaint.
sister, and there's no
Yeah.
reason to
Yeah.
complain.
The
Now,
only
it would
complaint
be.
I have,
Go ahead.
and this is a big one, because this secret is like the most important secret in the entire universe, so much that when Grand Admiral Thrawn discovers it, it's like this panic moment. It's the fact that she knows that Anakin Skywalker is Vader. That is the one and only thing of this entire series that bugs me right now, is because that was such a, and I get it. They need that to do that reveal so that Obi-Wan has this moment.
Well, I know that she knows that Vader has a connection to. Well, no.
No, she specifically says Anakin Skywalker is alive.
Oh, that's right. She does.
Yes. And they say he is dead. No one knows other than the Emperor and Tarkin, from my knowledge, and maybe a couple others, that Anakin is Vader. Even in the new Thrawn books, because they do this parallel where Thrawn in the Clone Wars actually did some stuff with Anakin.
Yeah.
And then when it's discovered that he watches his fighting style, and he's like, he recognizes he's Anakin Skywalker, and reveals that, it is this huge issue. So the fact that this Inquisitor knows kind of bugs me, because that was a huge secret in the Star Wars franchise.
So let me challenge this idea really quick, because okay, so do you think that this was a mistake in the writing, or have they tipped a hand early that in later episodes will be fleshed out, where we discover that third sister is closer to the Emperor, or was closer to the Emperor, or whatever the case may be?
The Inquisitors are Vader's hand. They're not. They have no connection to the Emperor.
So then, will this imply that she has a closeness to Vader that no one else does?
But even Vader denies that he is Anakin. I mean, that's something that Anakin Skywalker died. I mean, we see that in Rebels when Ahsoka realizes that he is Vader.
Maybe she confronts Ahsoka.
Ahsoka isn't around at that point, so.
Well, yeah, but no, I'm talking about like previous, like in other words, backstory, like what I'm leaving room for. Like we've talked about this before, where people will complain, like, I was watching episode 2 and there was a plot hole, and it's like, no, plot holes are just story that you haven't heard the rest of yet, right?
Yeah.
Like, and so I'm letting there be room for like explanation, but you bring up a good point, and I'm curious if this was a mistake, or if this was meant to be a lead that is going to thread through future
we don't
episodes.
Know.
We don't know yet.
We don't know yet.
I think it's a valid complaint, but what I also hear you implying is we're going to watch how this plays out.
Yeah. No, I am. It's the one weird thing that it's like, okay, wait a minute. Why? Because he's always, even in Rebels, this is the other weird thing, is timeline wise, this is happening before Rebels. And yet, they know Anakin is Vader. The Grand Inquisitor is dead, yet he shows up in Rebels. Or is he a different Grand Inquisitor?
Is he a different one? I don't know.
Yeah. I'm a little interested.
This is a good segue then, because I had some questions about lore, and I wanted to rely on your guys' great knowledge of Star Wars to help explain this to me. So what you just said, Daniel, is the first thing that concerned me, is that I haven't watched all of Star Wars Rebels, but I understood that the Grand Inquisitor had been killed and his spirit tied to a Jedi temple by Darth Vader. So then this person shows up here. He's the same race. Now, I can understand that if someone gets killed, they'll be replaced. We could do that. But this is the same race, has the same markings. He looks just like the Grand Inquisitor. And so is it a difference in timeline? Has that event just not happened yet? Or
Star Wars, the multiverse.
Yeah.
Well,
I thought Rebels had happened prior to
No,
this.
Rebels is set a few years after the Obi-Wan series. Yeah. So, and the Grand Inquisitor is a main character in the first season that Kanan fights. So maybe he's not dead. I don't know.
I will say
maybe they clone him. We don't know.
I will say that I I do get like I was a little surprised that episode 2 rolls around and third sister shows her true colors, takes her ambition takes over, and she kills the Grand Inquisitor. Or at least we think he's dead at this point, right?
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
I mean that was a cauterization of internal organs and you die. But anyway, but also like I get annoyed when you take a big bad and you just wipe them out
Yeah.
right away. Or like, this is a series. This happens in a lot of like older comic book movies where like at the end of every movie, they don't just defeat the villain, they kill the villain, or the villain dies, or there's something that happens and the villain is wiped out, whatever. Like, it's such a waste. It's such a waste. And here we have the Grand Inquisitor. Either he's not dead, or he's not the Grand Inquisitor that we know in Rebels, or whatever the case may be. But I thought that it would wait at least till episode 3 or 4 before her sudden and inevitable betrayal.
Yeah.
Yeah, my theory is that the Grand Inquisitor is not dead, especially if he needs to show up later on in Rebels.
Well, yeah. I mean, the start of Rebels is 5 years prior to episode 4, A New Hope.
Mhm.
So that means there's about a 3-year gap between Obi-Wan and that, because Luke is like 18 or 19. So, I mean, it's either a 3 or 4 year gap based on what actual age Luke is. So that is a concern. Now, could Reva have been there before Anakin went into the suit? So that's how she knows, maybe, and hopefully they explain that. I hope so. But the Grand Inquisitor is an issue in my mind that they're going to have to explain, because he does show up in Rebels, which is canon.
But I had, based on what we said earlier, I have optimism that they're going to handle this properly by the end of the series.
Oh, I'm sure they will. Yeah, I mean, I don't think that there's just going to be like, wow, there's so many plot holes here. What's going on?
Yeah.
I think they're going to connect those things.
So my other question about lore also has to do with the Inquisitors, and it's more meta, the meta story of what's going on here. Now, they established in the prequels that the Sith, there's always only ever 2 of them.
Yes.
Right? And despite that fact, we have a Count Dooku. We have a Darth... the person who ordered the clones.
Well, Darth Sidious
Sifo-Dyas, but it was actually Sidious.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And
which
was actually Palpatine. And
yes.
Yeah. Okay, because there were all these other people that were showing up that were Sith, and you're like, is there more? And you had Maul, and then all of a sudden you've got Dooku, and it's just like, okay, if there's only 2 of them at a time, this is not quite fitting so well. But anyway, the whole point of the question that I'm going for here is, do you think that the story writers invented the Inquisitors so that they could have dark side Force users who aren't officially Sith to get around that?
Yeah, I mean, they already did that even before this, because we had the Emperor's Hand.
Yeah.
In the books, which we all know one of the Emperor's Hand was Mara Jade.
Mm-hmm.
They are assassins that are specifically, their whole job was to go out and assassinate people that the Emperor no longer liked. And they were Force users. The Inquisitors are no different. They're just Force-sensitive dark side agents. They're not officially a Sith Lord or a Sith. They are a dark side agent that just happened to use the Force. And we've seen this throughout a lot of lore where, technically Darth Maul was not a Sith Lord. No, wait, he was. Excuse me.
He's called Darth.
Yeah,
Darth is the title.
So you're right. Prior, he wasn't. It wasn't in. So here's where things get hairy. So in Phantom Menace, Sidious is technically not the master. He was given Darth Maul as a gift from the sisters, the Night Sisters. and he was raised to be this fighting machine. It wasn't until shortly after Phantom Menace that he actually kills Plagueis. So he's not technically a Sith Lord at that time. Even though he's given the title Darth Maul, he wasn't official. He was still his apprentice, but wasn't officially apprentice because he wasn't a master. He was still the apprentice. So there is kind of that overlapping stuff, kind of like when we saw Force Unleashed when Vader had a secret apprentice. So
Which
there
is a great
some
story.
there is some of that overlapping stuff.
And on top of that, like, even if there is this established concept of there are only ever two, and when you think about like how Sith rise through the ranks, it's usually by killing the one above them and so on, right? And so there's sort of like a natural attrition that occurs. But the point is, these are the Sith, and they're given to deception, and they're given to power hungering, and like there's no reason, like the Sith would never have that drive and they'd be like, whoa, why are there three of us here right now? This doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there's definitely... It doesn't shock me that the rule of two is not a galactic rule, but I think the rule of two applies to master and apprentice.
Yes.
With the understanding that matriculation usually requires murder.
Yes.
I just have always thought the rule of two was a melodramatic and dumb story idea. There was no reason why the Sith had to be limited to that when the Jedi could have any number.
Well, see, the rule of two came into play with Darth Bane, and it was brilliant when it was put into play. And the reason for that is because there was, I would read the Darth Bane books because it really clearly explains this. And in that series, because of the constant fighting between the Jedi and the Sith, the Sith themselves had been watered down. There was no amassing power. There was no strength. They just kept, oh, hey, you're force sensitive. You hate the Jedi. Come join us, type thing. There was no power. There was nothing behind it. And Bane pretty much saw that the Sith were just as weak as the Jedi. And he sets up these events. He finds Darth Revan's holocron, and Revan really is the one that established, hey, there needs to be a rule of two, a master and an apprentice, one to crave the power, one to hold it. But that really didn't go into play until Bane found that, and he's like, I agree with that, because we're so watered down, we're weak, and we're losing. We're in a stalemate. The only way the Sith can win is if we disappear, become secret, amass our power, become more powerful than the Jedi, and then take over. So ultimately what Sidious does is completes Bane's mission that he sets forth. He wipes out all the Sith with this device called a thought bomb, wipes out the Jedi army, the Sith, and so he's the only one left. And he finds an apprentice, and then it trickles down. They start amassing wealth, armies, assassins, and everything like that.
But doesn't that lore undermine the creation of the Inquisitors? Because it's the same thing. You've got these people that are supposedly just as strong as a Jedi in the Force, but you're increasing dark side Force users, which was the original problem that you're saying Bane was trying to cull that down.
No, they're agents, they're assassins. They're not a master. They don't have the powers and the abilities, because you don't see them using Force lightning or Force push. They're just able to wield a lightsaber.
Oh, they used Force push and they used Force senses, and they were doing pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, we see some of that, but they only have minor mastery. So they're not a threat, because Vader or Palpatine at any moment could overwhelm and destroy them. I mean, we see that in Clone Wars, where Savage and Maul try to go after Sidious, and he just wipes the floor with them. They're nowhere near a threat to those two, in my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah, and also on top of that, the Inquisitors, I think, set themselves apart because theirs is a zealous ideology. Theirs is like a
Yes.
religious mission. And because they have this sort of like religious ideology, theirs is not necessarily seeking more power. Theirs is seeking the destruction of the Jedi.
Yes.
And so, like, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, all that stuff. And so there's a unification that occurs there. So they're not fighting each other, despite what we see in the third sister. Her ambition overrides her better judgment. Well, her ambition is her judgment, right?
Yeah.
But which I think makes sense for that character. But theirs is a more unified mission, which is why they even like hold on to the monikers of brother and sister. Theirs is sort of like a dark, perverse take on religious unification. So I think that sets them apart from the Sith.
I just thought of something really amazing, and I hope they play with this. But you're right; they are very zealot. They believe in the mission that the Emperor and Vader have set forth to wipe out the Jedi, because they are the bane of the galaxy's existence. And if any Jedi exists, then peace cannot be achieved. But as you were talking about that, ambition is a key component for an apprentice.
Mm-hmm.
An apprentice has to crave that power. I wonder if somehow they're going to tie that in, that she is secretly Vader's new apprentice.
That's what
that's why she knows he's Anakin.
Yeah, see, that's what I was leaning toward earlier too.
If they could pull that and twist that around, that would be amazing. Because that's the only but even then, it's still like, why would he say that he's Anakin now that he's Vader? But that could be maybe explain that. But yes, they are very zealot. It's no different than the Sith troopers we see in episode 9. They are complete zealots. They believe, they drank the Kool-Aid and everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, and they go through a reprogramming. So it's not fun. It's a very painful thing too.
I think the thing here is that, like, whenever we talk about the Force, we always talk about balance, and the idea that there are only ever 2 Sith in a whole council of Jedi, and the Jedi are wiping the Sith out. All of that is just as counter to balance as the Sith wiping the Jedi out. But what that means is kind of to steal a Jurassic Park line here and modify it slightly. The Force finds a way, right?
Yeah.
So like when the Jedi have too much power or presence, then the Sith must rise, because there must be balance. There must be opposition in all things. And not to toot my own bantha horn here, but when I was doing the Star Wars D20 RPG, my whole story arc revolved around this concept of these young Jedi that were, unbeknownst to them, they were linked to each other via visions they had each had that were sort of unified. And every one of those visions was warning them about a rising Sith threat, where there was some dark side master out there who was not a conventionally trained Sith Lord, but who was mastering the dark side and was bringing together other Force users who had his same predilections, his same lean, and he was amassing a small army because, just like Darth Bane, and this is before I knew any of the Darth Bane story, by the way, so this was just my own idea, but he knew that together they had more power than just being a pair or a single, and they were secretly forming this alliance, and these young Jedi, the players, were the ones that the Force was telling to, like, watch out for this threat and fight this threat. So I think the idea that the Sith don't always, or maybe even hardly ever, obey the rule of 2, I think that actually makes the Sith even more dangerous, because the Jedi believe in a false truth.
Yeah. Well, I mean, not only that, that doesn't mean there aren't other dark side users. I mean, we saw during the Clone Wars, which would have been during, the rule of 2, there were the Night Sisters. They still had access to the dark side. There were other Sith Lords that, were roaming around, that were maybe, that thought they were whatever, and they showed up later on. The difference is so Bane's created the Order of the Sith Lords. So that's just one group that followed this ideology. There were other ideologies out there, just like there are other ideologies with the Force and light side users.
Yep. And just like that, Darth Bane turns the Sith into an MLM.
Yeah. Except for not the greatest one.
So it sounds like we all really enjoyed the series a lot. There's a lot of really good things in there, Easter eggs, the characters, the effects. I mean, for me, I looked at this, I'm like, this really feels like a movie.
Yeah.
But we've got several, but it's broken up into several episodes. Was there anything about this that we didn't like?
Well, I mean, I've already said what I didn't like, which was the fact that they killed off the Grand Inquisitor, as far as we could tell so far, and she knows that his name, Darth Vader's name, is Anakin. I mean, I know that it had to propel Obi-Wan to do what he did at the end of the second episode. It also let him know that he's still alive. But I know that was a really tight-lipped secret, so that's kind of bugging me. And the fact that the Grand Inquisitor was killed, but he's supposed to show up in a couple years in Rebels. So those are the things that are really kind of like bugging me. But I'm waiting to see what they do with those things. Otherwise, I think this was a great script. I think they did a good job making it feel like, it's the Star Wars we grew up with and fell in love with. It's dirty, it's gritty, it's not clean and simple. And oh man, I can't tell you how much I love seeing those sparkly white stormtroopers that don't look like they have a duckbill marching down the street in order. It was just, yeah.
Matthias-san, was there anything that you didn't like about it?
There was a little bit of the story stuff, but overall, I really kind of liked the writing, and they needed to get off the ground. So I'm going to cut them some slack for getting off the ground, but from here on out, I want to see just this really great story writing that we've come to expect from some of the other Star Wars series there. Special effects were great, yeah. Ewan McGregor, top notch.
Mm-hmm.
It's really hard to find something that I didn't like about this. I mean, that Dayu planet, it seemed a little contrived. We don't allow messages in or out because people like their privacy, and yet even still on this entire planet. Now remember, this is on a planet-wide scale, just like Coruscant, but he happens to land within a few miles of where she was being held on an entire planet. Okay. And I don't know. There was, some of the timing of things, like when Reva is running across the rooftops, it sure looks like she's a lot closer. She takes a long time running to get there. It gives Obi-Wan plenty of time to get away there on that planet. I thought that from the look of things, I thought she was a lot closer, especially Force running as fast as she did.
Well, I mean, that makes sense. I mean, yes, she could have been close, but that didn't mean that there was enough space for her to jump back and forth. So she had to go a little bit longer route to get there.
For me, the things that I didn't like were nitpicky. And I have to start off with something that I actually did like and forgot to mention. The very opening of the first episode, where the younglings are training in like Terrace Kasi style flows, and then Order 66 engages, and their Jedi Master defends them and gets them, pretty far.
Yeah.
And watching the troopers use tactics that they were pre-programmed with to overwhelm and outnumber the Jedi. That was a harrowing and interesting scene to see, because we didn't get to see... We saw a lot of the consequence of Order 66, but we didn't get to see how it was done. Like, how many of those troopers have the higher ground? No, it was just like, how do clones, like lame clones, ever take out that many Jedi? But I think this episode did a better job of showing that off, right?
You need to see season 7 of Clone Wars, and you need to see the first episode of Bad Batch.
I will do that. But I do like
both
this
of those
scene for
show
that.
that really well.
And I think that this scene did some justice to that as well.
It did too. It did.
But leading into things that I didn't like, again, this is probably something that maybe we'll get more information on later, but the kids, the younglings, were like, what do we do now when their master falls? They're like, we run. And so then they run. I'm hoping that that's a Chekhov's gun moment that pays off later. Another thing, again, I'm being super nitpicky here, but the creature that Obi-Wan is mining meat from in like this camp, it's a creature that I don't really recognize. It's not a crate dragon. It's like a space stingray that crashed on the planet.
I know.
And there's only like so much time that meat like that can be good, and they don't show. I explained to my family, I'm like, well, maybe they have 20, maybe they have like all day shifts. So you have a shift here, it gets replaced by another shift, and they just carve this thing all the time. But they don't show that very well, and so there's some questions as to how does this work. But that, again, that's nitpicky. And then two more things. One is when Leia is tied up and put on the chair, her ropes do not go around the chair. She's not tied to the chair. She's just bound. And I'm like, but her feet are free, so she could just, I don't know, she could just like get up, right? Like, she's not stuck to the chair, but then she acts as though she's stuck to the chair.
Well, I think that one wasn't, again, it's nitpicky. I mean, she's locked in a room, and she's a 10-year-old. She probably can't slice a door open.
No, but she has Lola, right? And Lola tries to cut her free, yada yada.
Yeah.
And apparently every droid has a little Dremel blade. But anyway, and then the last thing I'll say is I was trying like crazy when they were on Dayu. I was trying like crazy to translate all the Orabesh that I could, because I don't have Orabesh memorized, but I was like grabbing letters as I was seeing signs. And there was one restaurant that the sign read noodle, like singular.
Nice.
And I wish it had said noodles, plural. It was just noodle. And I'm like, just one. Okay.
Or maybe the guy's name is Noodle.
Maybe his name is Noodle.
However,
maybe the sign has more stuff.
Cool. Hasbro has announced that you can get your own Lola soon.
Oh, that's very cool.
Yes.
And I will also point out that when Riva was on the rooftops and there's an Orabesh sign in neon behind her, maybe it's a much larger sign, but there's only 2 characters behind her, and they say ER.
Nice.
So, like, it could be an emergency room building. I'm not like there she is on top of a hospital. That's kind of its own like foreboding thing. But anyway, those that part I actually liked. But the other items, those were my nitpicks. And to be honest, they really are like I had to dig for those nitpicks.
Yeah. All right. And I did like the Jawa. I really like the interaction with the Jawa. Yeah, especially he's like, if you're gonna steal my stuff, at least clean it up when you sell it
and resell it back to me. Could you at least clean it? Cleaning costs extra. It was perfect.
Yes. However, all right, folks, if you haven't already seen it and you've listened to our show, go watch it. If you have seen it, let us know what you think. Let us know what you thought. I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed watching this. Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan has always been fantastic. I'm excited to see where they go with this series. I know a lot of people have been hoping for this. Not only that, we're going to get a lot more. Now, once this wraps up, which will be by the end of June, by the end of this summer, we're going to get the Andor series. By October, we're going to have season 3 of The Mandalorian. Next year, we're going to get Ahsoka and the Occulties, which the Occulties, I'm excited for.
Is it the Occulties or is it the Acolytes?
Excuse me, the Acolytes.
There we go.
I'm excited for that because that is set like 200 years before Phantom Menace. So it's going to be in the High Republic era, something that they haven't really done before. So we're going to see a younger Yoda. We're going to see some awesome Jedi stuff.
Can Yoda be a puppet again, please?
We'll see.
It worked for Grogu.
It did. We'll see. There's a lot of really cool stuff coming. I think we've got the right people in charge, and we'll really see some cool stuff. So let us know what you think. Now, with that said, we're out of here. And don't forget to take the high ground.
Hey, Daniel.
What
did Obi-Wan say to the cowboy?
Moo?
May the horse be with you.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, my gosh.
oh my gosh. And
I don't know where to go with that.
And whether you're a fan of the prequels, the original trilogy, the new trilogy, or absolutely god-awful puns. Always remember to be epic and don't suck. Don't suck.
Ouch.
Why do I feel that was directed at me?
Remember, the Force will be with you, always.